see. I mean, the titles of these pay-per-views sum it up, don't they? All double or nothing, all in, all this kind of stuff. They're really going for it, and that seems to be the philosophy. Go all out and winner takes all. And it's probably not the best idea to go head-to-head in competition with WWE. So I'm glad that it's been rumoured now that they will be on a Wednesday, which is not a bad decision.
Yeah, I think it's a good decision.
Avoid conflict like that if you can, because there's really no need for it. You don't need to make the fans choose. I mean, TV these days is so on demand. No one really watches stuff live, or most people don't these days. They just sort of record it and then watch it when they want anyway. So the war of head-to-head stuff really isn't that important. So I'm glad they will be on different days. I feel like that will benefit AEW, enormously. But yeah, I feel like the intention is there to be a legitimate competition, and the wrestlers they have are top quality ones. They're not just hiring anyone. And this whole thing with WWE, when someone's out of favour, and then people automatically assume that they're just going to come to AEW, that's not really the case, because sometimes the people who aren't in favour in WWE aren't in favour for a reason. Perhaps they're not actually hitting their characters as they should be. Maybe they're not as good on the mic as they should be. Maybe they're not putting off the moves in the ring as they should be. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff that we don't know, that we don't see because we're not behind the scenes.
Yeah, sure. One of the biggest things that hit home with me, Matt, that Tony Khan said is there will be no scripting. There will only be bullet points like there used to be. I was like, thank God. Because everything does sound so much the same. I don't want to see Braun Strowman going out there, a 7-foot guy, trying to remember his damn lines for an earpiece. It's so stupid. I feel like, if a guy can't do an interview, we have lost that art. That art has been totally... The craft of doing an interview these days is gone in WWE. I really do believe that. I mean, unless you're a guy that's been on the indie circuit, that's been made to do it, you might have that ability. But for most guys, they look like they can't... They're so dependent on having lines. Or is it WWE just micromanaging everything? I think probably the latter would be the case. But I think, you need to let guys have a little bit of leeway to develop their character to become something. I mean, you look at Roman Reigns, and it's, everyone says this guy in real life is really funny. He's like quality backstage. He's a cool guy. But as soon as he gets out there with them bloody lines, it just doesn't work. He's got no sort of, connection with the fans, the way they present him. And, there's no way Steve Austin would have been overly produced the way they are now. I feel like the last time we had a great talker in the business was probably like CM Punk, who was just going out there and cutting some really good promos. I loved the ones where he was very off the cuff with Triple H. I mean, I thought they were brilliant. But when was the last time we saw anything like that? Real emotion, Matt. I haven't seen it for ages without thinking, God, this is just so wrestling. It's like, you don't like me. It's just the same. Oh, man, what are they... The purpose, the writing is just awful. So the fact that AEW are going to let their guys, not be micromanaged and have bullet points. Yes, of course you've got to have bullet points because you have to go a certain way, but you don't need to overdo it. And you want to let guys, try to sort of bring something to their own character, because that's the only way they really believe in it. It must be so difficult in WWE when you're trying to get something over, but then you've got to kind of read these crazy lines. And when John Moxley was talking about it, because someone asked him on an interview, they said, what would happen if you just, you went offline? And he said, well, I did it a few times, but he goes, the problem is the poor writer would get the blame for it, not him. And he said, like, the writer might have kids, he might have a mortgage. He wasn't going to do that to the poor guy. So he just stuck to it. But he said, really, it was a nightmare. But the other fascinating thing about the Austin podcast, Matt, was the fact that Austin brought up the thing with Tony Khan when he had Dean Ambrose on his podcast, Matt. And, it was such an awkward interview, wasn't it? If you go back on it, I think it's still on the network. It's like the most awkward podcast interview ever from Steve Austin and Dean Ambrose. And yeah, Austin came out about it and he said, you know, like, they just got off on the wrong foot because basically Dean Ambrose was told beforehand he wasn't allowed to talk about specific things with Austin, and Austin was trying to like goad him and gauge like some things about about Dean Ambrose, but he just wasn't allowed to do it. So they put that to rest anyway, which was kind of cool because that was so awkward, that interview. I mean, my God. But yeah, I mean, it seems to me, Matt, that unless your name's Brock Lesnar, you can't get away with just saying whatever you want, because I'm pretty sure Brock's not giving any lines whatsoever. And if he is, how much is he sticking to those lines? You know, he swears, he does all sorts of things. But, I mean, he's like on a different kind of scale, I'm guessing, Matt, in terms of all the other guys. But, yeah, I think the fact that AEW are going to push towards having non-script stuff is fantastic. It is something that's missing, and hopefully, if anything, Matt, it will make WWE reconsider when they start seeing these kind of crazy, you know, these really good emotional storylines. Because the WWE just will not be able to compete with that, in my opinion. If you've got guys going out there right off the cuff at each other, I can't see how WWE could really do a good job scripting everything down to the last letter. So what we want here, Matt, is, you know, we want them to sort of compete with each other in a way that it makes both products better. I mean, that's what we're hoping for, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I said, that whole freedom that they have can only benefit them, because who knows their character better than the rest of themselves? You know, that kind of input is invaluable. Like you just can't get enough of that, because that's particularly what made wrestling great when people were watching it back in the day and they were invested in the storylines. Is the input from the wrestlers themselves.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So that's it on AEW. Sounds really good. And okay, Matt, I think we've got time for some questions now. So let's get into some of these then, shall we? Right, it's the first question here. So this week, I've got a question from Steve Oakes. What a show this is. I came across this by accident. Oh, he's referring to our podcast here, Matt, by the way. I've only just got back into wrestling since I bought AEW pay-per-view on ITV Box Office. This podcast is down to earth. My question is, what is the actual schedule for AEW when it starts? I can't wait. Also, how long was Cody in WWE for? Oh, I should have done some research on that. I didn't. I don't suppose you got a ballpoint figure in your head, have you, man? How long Cody was there?
Well,
I'll look it up if not.
He came in, and you know his first.
Remember, he was with Bob Holly for a while.
So I don't know. It's really hard to hazard a guess, because they went for the whole like developmental thing, which wasn't NXT back then.
No, you're right. It was OVW.
So,
yeah. But that's good that you like the podcast. I'm glad that you find it appealing for somebody that's just got back into wrestling. As a question back to you, though, I would like to find out why you got out of wrestling, and as well, and I can tell why you've got back into it through AEW, but also why that phased out. And in terms of his career, he joins OVW, as Matt said, which was basically like NXT is now. It was run by Jim Cornette back then, in 2006 in OVW, and he came up on the main roster in 2007 with Hardcore Holly. So yeah, he was there all the way until 2016. It's not even that long ago, is it really?
No, it doesn't really feel like it.
Yeah, partnership with Goldust.
He came in with quite a good storyline, didn't he? I mean, like after a couple of years, he got into the whole legacy kind of thing with Randy Orton, didn't he?
Right.
Which, you know, that was kind of billed as the next kind of evolution, and they got part of it right. You know, Cody Rhodes was destined for good things.
Yeah, what was the gimmick he was doing with the face? Like he was perfection or whatever.
He
was doing like a Rick Rude.
He was dashing Cody Rhodes. He was dashing Cody Rhodes, and then he got a 619 from Rey Mysterio, and then he thought he was hideous. So he brought that kind of.
That's right. I kind of liked that. That was one of the. I didn't mind that as much when he was doing that gimmick. Kind of thought that was cool. But yeah, there you go. That's all about him. In terms of AEW's schedule, I'm just now looking now. They have not announced exactly a date, but we are led to believe, as Matt alluded to earlier, that since they've been trademarking stuff, they did trademark Wednesday night is Dynamite. So we're expecting Dynamite to be the name of the show in any case, and that'll be the sort of slogan, I'm guessing, because I think it's all down to being on a Wednesday because of the NBA games that they have on TNT with CBS. So I believe they didn't want to kind of put them on at around the same time. And again, the interesting thing with TNT, Matt, is they're not exactly huge fans of the WWE, are they? So they're probably going to help AEW out a little bit anyway with helping them with their TV stuff, no doubt about it. So yeah, in terms of the events, we've got an event this week. I mean, the 29th, Matt, we've got an event. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's actually something that Kenny Omega ran himself last year, which was a mix between video games and wrestling. And it's got so big that basically Tony Khan said on Austin's podcast that he believes in Kenny Omega so much that he wanted to invest in it. So he's literally giving Kenny Omega the AEW roster for the night, and also pumping quite a bit of money into it. And it's a mixture of wrestling games and wrestling. Any video games and wrestling. It's called Fyter Fest. And that comes from Florida this week on Saturday. I believe, in terms of how to get it, I believe there's an app that you're going to be able to watch it for free. Is what I've been told, but you're going to have to find that one out, because I don't know what that's on, but it's not going to be on the usual stuff. But I'm sure if you go on the website, it will tell you anyway. And then we've got Fight for the Fallen, which is a good cause pay-per-view they're doing for the victims in Florida. I believe that's happening on July the 13th, and then they go all out August 31st, Matt. And straight after that is when they're going to be doing the TV show, Matt. So following the All Out pay-per-view, that Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever they debut the TV show, it's going to be straight after that week. So they're going to have the big pay-per-view, and then storylines are going to take place on TV. It's not that long when you think about it, is it, Matt? Really, 31st of August. I mean, it's literally September, and we've got another TV show. So
it's coming around fast.
It is coming around fast. So and it's going to be a great show as well. All out. I mean, I'm expecting big things there, and one thing to add there as well is what Tony Khan said. He is massive on tag team wrestling, so I do think we're going to see some great tag team wrestling finally on our screens, which is something that's really missing these days, and it'll be cool. Okay, DX1 now. Is WWE's tour of Japan going to be shown on the network? What are the matches? I'm not really sure if they're putting that on the network, Matt, are they? Or I've not seen an advert for it. I'll look it up.
No, I hadn't seen an advert for that. No.
Yeah, the matches. Well, I think we know Triple H is involved, don't we, Matt?
Yeah.
He might have another group to add to his list by the sounds of it. I think they'll make their money's worth out of Ken Hansen and Gallows yet, won't they? God, dear, oh dear. There are some matches announced for this, but not all of them so far. Let me just get some of them up. Triple H's match currently is not confirmed, but I'm suspecting he will do something with Gallows. And actually, I think he's teaming with AJ, isn't he? That's one of the things I think he's doing. I think that's why people are suspecting that they're going to do a big thing for him to be a part of the club, and they're probably going to stand there at the end, and Triple H will be now nominated the latest member of the club to all these other groups that he's been in, Matt. No, there's nothing here to state that it's going to be on the network, Matt, so I'm guessing it's just going to be a house show in Japan, this one. It's a little bit of a shame, but I'm sure we'll see clips of it anyway, Matt, won't we?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, they always like to promote themselves in some way. I mean, those terrible clips of Triple H came out last time when he was in India and that. And
Oh God, yeah.
You know, so. But...
I forgot about that one. I think he's tried to forget about it.
Yeah.
And God dear, don't know what took over him that night.
So, yeah, no doubt he'll embarrass himself